Please don't help me. Help my mom instead. The words sliced through the easy chatter of the afternoon, but the moment hadn't begun there. Just minutes earlier, the girl who said it, Zuri Coleman, 4 years old, sharp-eyed and small for her age, had been surrounded by children near the arts booth. They were cutting shapes from colored paper. One boy had asked why she was in a wheelchair. Another asked if her daddy was going to pick her up. "I don't have a daddy," she answered simply, as her mother taught her to without shame, without apology. A third child, older and meaner, had smirked and said, "That's 'cause he didn't want to stick around for someone like you." Zuri blinked. Before she could respond, the boy pushed at her wheelchair. It rolled backward over the uneven path, jolting, then tipping. Her small hands reached for the side rails, but the chair went over. She hit the ground hard, not with a scream, but a thud. Her elbow scraped the pavement, her dress bunched around her knees. A few parents gasped. One volunteer rushed forward. Jackson had already begun walking. By the time he reached her, the boy had run off. Zuri lay on her side, stunned, her cheek against the cool cement. Her mother, Nia, was sprinting toward her, hard in her throat, but Jackson crouched first. He didn't touch her immediately. He knelt close, his voice quiet. "Hey, sweetheart, that wasn't okay. Are you hurt anywhere badly?" Zuri's lips trembled, but she shook her head. Nia dropped beside them, scooping Zuri gently into her arms. "I'm here, baby. I'm here." Jackson stood, stepped back, gave space but not distance. He reached down and righted the wheelchair with one smooth motion. Then, noticing a tear in the wheel's alignment, he examined it with the precision of someone who built empires with his hands before he ever used money. "I can have this fixed for you," he said softly. Nia looked up, cautious. "It's fine. We're used to it." He nodded, but didn't leave. And that was when the volunteer, trying to lighten the tension, knelt beside Zuri with a forced smile and joked, "You know, maybe that nice man should adopt you. He seems like he'd be a good dad." "Huh?" That's when the sentence came. Zuri straightened in her mother's lap, turned toward the volunteer and then to Jackson, her eyes bright and still swimming with unshed tears. "Please don't help me. Help my mom instead." The entire park froze. Zuri's scraped elbow still bled a little. Her dress was dusty, the puffballs in her ponytails slightly loosened from the fall. And yet her voice was steady, not dramatic, not angry, just clear, certain. Jackson looked down at her for a long moment. Then he crouched again, slowly, until he was eye level with her once more. "That's the bravest thing I've ever heard," he said, his voice low and deeply moved. Nia, still cradling her daughter, flushed with emotion. Her lips parted to apologize, but nothing came. Zuri wasn't speaking from confusion or pain. She was speaking from something deeper, because Zuri had seen her mother on the days no one else did. She had seen her work a double shift, come home with swollen ankles and still read her a bedtime story in 5 different voices. She had watched her hold broken things together with tape and faith and pretend everything was just fine. She knew the truth. Her mom didn't need rescuing. She needed rest. And Zuri, even at 4, wanted to give her that. The moment stretched, the breeze lifting the hem of Nia's thrifted coat. No one spoke. Then Jackson nodded slightly and stood. "I didn't come here to change anyone's life," he said, eyes still on Zuri. "But I just heard something that changed mine. No." With that, he turned and walked slowly back toward the donation tables, where he slipped a folded check into the community youth fund jar. He didn't say another word, just vanished into the crowd. Later that night, back in their small one-room apartment where the fridge hummed louder than the TV and the heater sputtered like it was breathing its last, Nia wrapped Zuri in a blanket, her bandaged elbow resting on a folded towel. "You scared me today," Nia whispered. Zuri stared at the ceiling. "Did I do something wrong?" "No, baby. You just," Nia sighed, brushing her fingers along Zuri's curls. "You said something people aren't used to hearing, especially from someone your size." Zuri turned her head. He listened, though. Nia looked away. She wasn't sure what scared her more, that a billionaire had actually listened, or that her daughter might start hoping again. "You know," Zuri said sleepily. "He didn't blink when I said it. Not once." "Oh." And Nia, who hadn't cried in months, felt her throat close tight. Across town, in a quiet hotel suite overlooking the lake, Jackson Whitmore stood alone by the window. He was used to moments of silence. But this one wasn't like the others. This one held something different. A sentence replayed again and again in his head. "Don't help me. Help my mom instead." It was the first time in years he didn't feel like a man who had everything, just a man who had been reminded what truly mattered. If this moment touched you, hit like and drop your city in the comments to see who else is watching near you. Jackson Whitmore didn't sleep that night. The city outside his suite pulsed softly distant car horns, the low hum of street lamps flickering over sidewalks, the rustling wind off Lake Erie, but none of it reached him. He stood still by the window, arms crossed, watching fog blur the glass. Behind him, the untouched bed remained neat, impersonal, like everything in his life lately. He kept thinking about the little girl, about how she hadn't cried when she fell, about how her voice didn't shake when she asked him to help her mother instead. She hadn't wanted a new wheelchair or a toy. She wanted relief for someone else. It wasn't just brave. It was selfless in a way that felt ancient, like something his mother used to tell him. The truest measure of a person is what they ask for, when no one's watching. Well, he had been watching, and now he couldn't look away. By dawn, Jackson sat at the small kitchen table of the suite, coffee in hand, his laptop open. He rarely Googled anyone personally, he paid people for that, but this time he wanted to see for himself. What he found wasn't much. No social media, no viral videos, just a line in a local Cleveland community newsletter from 3 months ago. Volunteer Spotlight. Nia Coleman, 27, leads free Saturday dance classes at Lincoln Park for girls aged 5-10. Classes held on the old tennis court near the east fence. Donations accepted. Ballet slippers, bottled water, hair ties. He stared at her name, Nia Coleman. Simple, strong, no scandal attached, no charity sob stories, just a woman doing what she could, with what little she had. A few hours later, Jackson's assistant, Theo, called. "Hey boss, you okay? You sound slower than usual." "I'm fine," Jackson said. Then after a pause, "I need a quiet background check. Her name is Nia Coleman. She has a daughter named Zuri. Lives somewhere in the South Tremont neighborhood. No press, no favors. I want basic facts, nothing invasive. Can you do that?" Theo hesitated, then answered, "Of course. But just so I'm clear, what are you looking for?" Jackson's voice was low. "The truth, about how she lives." Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Nia was rinsing dried pasta off a plastic bowl with one hand while holding Zuri's toothbrush in the other. The bathroom sink dripped. A cracked tile near the tub shifted under her heel. She hummed under her breath, an old jazz tune her mother used to sing. Something calm, something to cover the exhaustion in her chest. Zuri sat nearby in her chair, already dressed for school, a knit headband over her curls. The scraped elbow was healing under a cartoon bandage. "Do I look okay?" Zuri asked suddenly. Nia turned, drying her hands on her jeans. "You look beautiful." Zuri twisted her lips. "Even with the scrape?" "Especially with the scrape," Nia said. "Makes you look strong." Zuri smiled. "Like you?" Nia's throat caught for a second. "Something like that." After dropping Zuri off at daycare run by the local rec center, discounted for single parents, Nia took the long way to the bus stop. The morning air had that pre-winter chill that made Cleveland feel older than it was. She wrapped her scarf tighter, pulled her jacket close. Her next shift at the diner started in 20 minutes, and the ache in her lower back was already whispering. On the way, she stopped by the park, Lincoln Park. The old tennis court was cracked, the net poles rusting, but the chain-link fence still stood. On Saturdays, she swept it herself, laid down cheap mats, and led whatever girls showed up in borrowed slippers and unmatched socks. She hadn't danced professionally in 5 years. 5 years since she'd given up her audition for the Columbus Ballet Academy. 5 years since the pink line on that test stick changed everything. 5 years since Zuri's father disappeared before ever hearing her heartbeat. She closed her eyes, breathing in the crisp air. Dance was still in her bones, somewhere, but life had demanded other things. Formula, rent, bus tokens. She never once regretted staying. but she missed who she used to be. And sometimes, in the quiet between dishes and daycare, she wondered if that girl still lived in her somewhere, or if she was just a ghost clinging to a dream no longer welcome. Later that night, while folding laundry, she found something in Zuri's backpack, a drawing, crumpled but bright. 3 stick figures. One tall with brown hair, one small in a wheelchair, one in the middle with curly hair and a long pink dress. Above them, a red heart floated like a sundae. Nia's breath caught. She smoothed the paper out and stared at it. She didn't need to ask who the man was. Zuri had already imagined them as a family, and it terrified her. Because what if Jackson was just kind that one day? What if this was a moment, a passing softness, and not something real? Nia had learned to survive. Hope, when it left, tore deeper than hunger ever could. At that same hour, Jackson sat in his office at the downtown high-rise. Theo had emailed him the report. No red flags, no criminal record, no complaints. Just one note that stuck out. Miss Coleman has lived in Unit 1 Ampere of the South Tremont complex for 3 years. She works part-time at Benny's Diner and also does weekend cleaning shifts for a janitorial service. Always pays rent on time, never late. Complex is slated for redevelopment by Whitmore Properties next year. Jackson stared at that last line. He owned the building, the very one she struggled to live in. He leaned back, breath slow. All the charity galas, all the donation drives, none of it felt like enough now. What good was writing checks when someone like Nia had been working under his roof, unseen? He closed his laptop gently and stood, walking to the window again. This wasn't about saving her. He knew that much now. It was about showing up, about listening, about returning something the world had stolen from her without asking. He didn't know how yet, but he would. The next Saturday arrived with skies the color of pewter and a steady breeze that turned scarves into flags and rattled the bus stop signs along West 14th Street. Nia stood at the corner, her arms full with a box of secondhand ballet shoes, water bottles, and fruit snacks. Zuri sat patiently in her chair, humming a tune Nia couldn't quite place. Something light, something hopeful. Lincoln Park looked tired in the late morning light. The trees were shedding their last stubborn leaves, and the wind carried a chill that whispered winter was only days away. Nia pushed the chair slowly along the cracked path toward the tennis court. She didn't have time for questions, certainly not the kind that had plagued her all week. What was Jackson Whitmore doing in their neighborhood? What did it mean when a man like that looked at your daughter like she mattered? What scared her wasn't the attention, it was the silence after. He hadn't come back. No calls, no notes, no more quiet smiles. Just that one moment of kindness, now suspended in memory. She was pulling a tangle of ribbons from the box when a voice called gently from behind her. "You always do this alone?" Nia turned. Jackson stood near the edge of the court, his coat flapping slightly in the breeze. He wasn't flanked by bodyguards. No driver waited nearby. He held a thermos in one hand, a small folding chair in the other. "I thought you left," Nia said before she could stop herself. Jackson gave a small smile. "I thought about it. Then I thought better." Zuri wheeled herself forward. "I told my teacher you might come. She said that was wishful thinking." Jackson knelt beside her. "Well, I've been known to make a few wishes come true." The way Zuri giggled, quick, bright, unguarded, sent a strange ache through Nia's chest. "I brought something," Jackson said, holding out a brown paper bag. Zuri opened it carefully. Inside was a balloon animal twisted into a crown. She let out a squeal. "It's for me?" Jackson bowed his head like a court jester. "For the bravest girl I know." Nia knelt, adjusting the scarf around Zuri's neck. "We don't expect gifts." "This isn't a gift," Jackson said. "It's an apology for being late." The air thickened with something unspoken. Nia nodded once, then turned back to unpack the box. The girls began arriving, some in puffy jackets over leotards, others in sneakers because slippers were too expensive. Jackson unfolded his chair quietly and sat near the edge, sipping coffee, eyes scanning the group. For the next hour, Nia led them through warm-ups, posture drills, and simple combinations. Her voice shifted, more confident here, instructive and firm. She laughed more easily. She clapped in rhythm. The girls mirrored her every move. Jackson watched it all, the cracked court, the mismatched outfits. the beauty tucked inside imperfection, and the way Nia moved not with glamour or performance, but with purpose. Each step she took was grounded. Every instruction came from muscle memory and motherly instinct. Zuri sat nearby, mimicking stretches with her arms, beaming every time her mother glanced her way. After class, the girls trickled off, waving goodbye and promising to return. Nia began cleaning up in silence, her hands moving briskly. Jackson stood, picking up water bottles before she could. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I know," he replied, still doing it. They worked in silence for a moment before Nia broke it. "People like you, they don't usually come back." Jackson looked at her. "That's fair, but I'm not here for show." "You're a billionaire," she said bluntly. "You're always a show, even when you try not to be." He didn't flinch. "I grew up quieter than you'd think. Not poor, but not much more. My mother raised me on books and cracked vinyl records. She passed when I was 16. Since then, it's been noise. Money makes a lot of it." Nia's eyes softened, but her voice remained cautious. "Noise doesn't fix broken things. I'm not here to fix you." She blinked. "I'm here because your daughter reminded me what it means to stay." A gust of wind blew between them. Nia turned slightly, her expression unreadable. "You're saying a lot of right things, Mr. Whitmore." Jackson," he corrected. "Jackson," she paused. "But people say a lot of things when they feel something. Feeling isn't the same as staying." "I know," he said simply. Zuri, from her chair, called out, "Mama, can Mr. Jackson come again next week?" Nia hesitated. Jackson didn't press. Then she gave the smallest nod. "If he brings more balloon animals." Jackson grinned. "Deal." Later, as he walked back toward the sidewalk where his car was parked, still refusing a driver, he glanced once over his shoulder. Nia was bent low, tying Zuri's bootlaces, speaking softly. The breeze played with a few curls that had escaped her bun. Her coat was threadbare. Her jeans were patched at the knee, but to Jackson, she looked more regal than any gala guest he'd ever seen. Hard floors, soft hearts. That's what this place was made of, and he was beginning to wonder if that was what he needed most. The weather turned the following week. Autumn, once playful and crisp, now moved with sharper teeth. The wind came colder. Gray stretched over Cleveland like a worn-out blanket. But even under that cloudy sky, Lincoln Park carried a quiet energy, especially near the old tennis court, where something new had begun to bloom. Nia didn't notice the change right away. She and Zuri arrived early that morning, bundled in scarves and layered jackets. The usual routine: check the mats, unlock the donation bin, unroll the tape lines for the girls to follow during foot placement drills. Nia moved with quiet precision, her body remembering the flow of repetition even when her heart felt clouded by doubt. It had been a week since Jackson returned. A full week of silence again. He hadn't called, hadn't texted. Not that she'd given him her number. Still, Zuri had talked about him nearly every day. He knew how to tie the balloon without popping it. He didn't blink when I said brave stuff. He called me a crown. Nia didn't want to admit it. But the man had lodged himself somewhere behind her ribs. Not romantically. At least not consciously. It was deeper than that. He'd listened. Fully. Without interruption. And after years of being spoken over, pitied, or ignored altogether, that alone was enough to leave a mark. As she laid down the last mat, Zuri's voice piped up. "Mama, what's that?" Nia looked up. At first, she didn't see anything unusual, but then her eyes focused on the far side of the court, just past the old bleachers where the weeds grew through cracks in the cement. There was a platform, wooden, about 12 feet wide, elevated just slightly above ground. 4 sturdy posts framed it like a stage. Strung between the posts were fairy lights, unlit for now but already magical in suggestion. A tall mirror leaned against one side, weatherproofed behind plastic, and attached to the front rail, painted in careful brush strokes, a sign read, "For those who still remember how to dance." Nia froze. She walked slowly toward it, heart thudding. There was no city funding for something like this. No permit had been requested. No donation announcement made. She would have heard. Would have seen. This was deliberate. Zuri rolled up beside her, eyes wide. "Mama," she whispered, "is this for us?" Nia didn't answer, but deep down, she knew. And the knowing stirred something that hadn't moved in a long time. That afternoon, the park filled with the usual weekend crowd. Children ran between the swings and picnic tables. Teens played basketball near the far end. And one by one, little girls from Nia's class arrived, bright-eyed and bundled, eager to try the new space. "Miss Nia, are we allowed on it?" She hesitated. "Let's try it gently, okay? One at a time." They obeyed, tiptoed onto the platform, giggling softly, twirling beneath the empty fairy lights. The mirror caught the afternoon light and scattered it in beams. The girls posed, laughed, tried spins, and failed landings. And then a voice rang out from the sidelines. "Miss Nia, show us how it's done." It was Maya, a 10-year-old with frizzy braids and fearless energy. The others joined in. "Yeah, show us, Miss Nia." Nia raised her hands. "Oh no, I haven't." Then it happened. Music. Soft, familiar, echoing faintly from the park speakers. It wasn't from her phone. She hadn't set anything up, but she knew that melody. It was "The Swan," the very piece she had danced to during her final Academy showcase before Zuri was born. Her muscles remembered it instantly. Nia blinked, stunna. Near the trees, hands in pockets, Jackson stood silently. He didn't wave, didn't announce himself. He just watched. Something unlocked in her then. A hinge, long rusted shut, creaked open. She stepped forward, onto the platform. First one foot, then the other, shoulders back, chin lifted, arms out. Her body remembered before her mind caught up. She moved not perfectly, but freely. Her arms curved with grace. Her legs bent and reached, toes skimming the platform. The wind caught her coat like fabric on stage. For 2 minutes, time folded. She wasn't a waitress, or a mother, or a woman scraping coins into a jar labeled medical transport. She was Nia, dancer, alive. The children clapped. Zuri beamed. Jackson remained where he was. He didn't approach, didn't need to. He had already done what he came to do. When the music faded, Nia landed softly. Not breathless, not emotional, just steady. She glanced toward the trees. He was gone, but the warmth remained, like an echo stitched into the wind. That night, back at home, Nia made grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup, Zuri's favorite. They sat cross-legged on the floor. No TV, just them, sharing laughter, dipping sandwiches into mismatched bowls. Zuri looked up at her suddenly. "Mama, do you miss dancing?" Nia hesitated. "I do." Zuri's voice was quiet. "Do you think you'll stop missing it someday?" Nia smiled, not sad but knowing. "No, baby. I think I'll always miss it a little. But sometimes something helps you remember it's still a part of you, even if you don't do it all the time." Zuri nodded. "Like a song in your heart?" Nia reached over and tucked a curl behind her ear. Exactly like that. Outside their window, the streetlight flickered. But inside, something glowed steady. Sunday morning came slowly, with light that spilled gently through the torn curtains of apartment 1 Ampere. Nia awoke first, out of habit more than rest. Years of broken routines had taught her that mothers rise before worry does. She sat on the edge of their floor mattress, stretching her neck, rolling her shoulders, silently counting breaths before the day began. Zuri was still curled up under the faded purple blanket, her small frame relaxed, hair wrapped loosely in a silk scarf that had seen better years. A ray of soft sunlight caught the edge of the drawing pinned above her head, a page torn from a dollar store sketch pad, taped carefully to the wall. 3 figures, a tall man with dark hair, a little girl in a wheelchair with wide eyes, and between them, a woman with long curls and a pink dress, holding both their hands. Above them, a red crayon heart hovered in the sky. Nia stared at it, her throat tightening. She didn't remember Zuri drawing it, but she recognized it instantly. Jackson, Zuri, and here. The night before, she had placed that same sketch in the kitchen drawer. She had thought about crumpling it, hiding it from Zuri, maybe even tearing it into pieces, not out of anger, but out of fear. The kind of fear that grows from hope. The kind of fear that whispers, "You don't get to dream like this." But Zuri had quietly taken it back and pinned it up, like children do with trophies. Now, as Nia watched her sleep, a question pressed on her ribs. Was she becoming part of a story she didn't choose? Or was this her chance to choose differently? Later that afternoon, Nia walked Zuri to the community center. Sundays were slow, just arts and crafts hour and a warm lunch for anyone who needed it. Zuri liked the chalkboard wall and the girl named Tasha who knew how to make paper swans from gum wrappers. After signing Zuri in, Nia stepped outside and sat on the stone bench near the bushes. Her coat wasn't warm enough. She pulled it tighter anyway. She didn't expect to see him. But there he was, Jackson Whitmore, walking up the path like he belonged there, wearing a navy peacoat and carrying a paper bag in one hand. Nia stood slowly, unsure. He stopped a few feet from her. "I brought cookies." She raised an eyebrow. "You bake now?" "I support local bakeries." "Does that count?" He handed her the bag. Still warm. "They're from Charlotte's over on Franklin. Oatmeal raisin." Nia hesitated, then accepted it. "You have a habit of appearing right after I dance." Jackson smiled softly. "That's because you have a habit of dancing when no one expects you to." They stood in silence for a moment. The sounds of kids laughing echoed from inside the center. "You made the platform, didn't you?" she asked. He didn't deny it. "You deserved a stage." "Rand." Nia looked down at the bag in her hands. "People keep trying to hand me things I didn't ask for. Would it help if I told you it wasn't charity?" "Then what is it?" Jackson's tone lowered. "Respect." She looked up. "I've been around powerful people my whole life," he continued, "but I've never seen anyone carry so much, so quietly. What you do for your daughter, for these kids, you didn't ask for a spotlight, but I figured maybe, just maybe, you'd remember what it felt like to stand in one." Nia let the words settle. For once, they didn't feel rehearsed. They didn't feel like pity wrapped in poetry. They felt earned. "I used to think I had to erase that part of me," she said after a beat. "The dancer. The dreamer. I didn't have room for her anymore. Not with rent due, and wheelchairs to lift, and food stamps to stretch." Jackson sat down on the bench beside her. "She's still there, I saw her." Nia exhaled. The cold bit at her cheeks. She blinked against the wind. Inside the building, Zuri peeked through the glass door. When she saw the two of them sitting side by side, her grin nearly split her face in half. That night, Nia tucked Zuri into bed early. The apartment was warmer than usual. Jackson had called in a maintenance order that afternoon, and for once the radiator worked like it meant it. As she pulled the blanket up to Zuri's chin, the little girl looked at her and asked, "Do you think he'll come back again?" Nia paused. "I don't know, baby." Zuri smiled. "He will. I can feel it." Nia kissed her forehead, turned off the light, and stood by the door for a long time, watching the slow rise and fall of her daughter's chest. She walked into the kitchen, pulled the drawing from the wall, and stared at it. Then, instead of hiding it, she slipped it into a frame she'd found at the thrift store months ago but never used. She placed it gently on the shelf above their tiny dining table. A crayon family. Not a promise. Just a maybe. The rain began just after sunset. Not a storm, just the soft, persistent kind that made the city glisten under street lamps and left everything smelling like concrete and old leaves. The kind of rain that blurred edges, softened noise, and made memories creep in uninvited. Nia stood in the kitchen of apartment 1 Ampere, drying her hands on a dish towel worn thin at the seams. Zuri was coloring at the table, humming something from the ballet music they'd played that morning. The frame drawing now sat proudly in the center of the table, surrounded by the scattered pieces of Zuri's imagination: crayons, stickers, sparkly glue pens. It had been 4 days since Jackson brought cookies. 3 since he called to ask if Zuri liked puzzles. 2 since he dropped off a brand new one. A 500-piece, Black Queens in History puzzle, complete with illustrated biographies for each figure on the box. Nia didn't know what he was doing, or rather, she didn't know why it made her heart feel like it was learning a new rhythm. But she wasn't blind. He was showing up. Not with grand gestures or romantic declarations, but in small ways. In the way he never asked for anything, never crossed the line. Just listened, offered, stayed. She was beginning to relax into it, just a little. Not trust, exactly, but maybe a kind of leaning. And that was when Ivy Lancaster showed up. The knock came just after 8 p.m., sharp and efficient. Nia opened the door to find a woman standing in the hallway, perfectly dry despite the rain. She wore a fitted wool coat, ash gray, with silver buttons that gleamed. Her hair was blown out into a sleek bob. Her makeup was precise, and her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "You must be Nia," the woman said, voice smooth and clipped. "I'm Ivy. I'm an old friend of Jackson's." Nia blinked. Her hand tightened on the doorknob. "Can I help you?" Ivy took a step forward, not inside, but close. "I just thought you should know. Jackson's back in New York. Things are complicated right now. He has a lot on his plate. PR issues, business deals, a reputation to protect." Nia said nothing. Ivy's voice dipped lower. "He and I go way back. There's talk of a proposal coming soon. He needs someone who fits into that world. You understand." The words landed like stones in a calm pond, rippling through every fragile hope Nia hadn't even admitted to herself. She held Ivy's gaze for a moment, then nodded once. "Thanks for stopping by," and closed the door. Behind her, Zuri looked up from the table. "Who was that?" "No one, baby," Nia murmured. "Just a neighbor." But her hands were shaking. That night, after Zuri fell asleep, Nia packed 2 bags, Zuri's wheelchair. That was all. She cleaned the apartment the way she'd found it 3 years ago, quiet, spotless, forgettable. On the table, beside the framed drawing, she left a note. "Thank you for everything. You gave my daughter joy I'll never forget. And for a moment, I remembered who I used to be. That's more than I ever hoped for. Wishing you peace, Nia." Then she placed the drawing next to it. The crayon heart was faded from sun exposure. The paper slightly curled at the edges, but the colors were still bright. She couldn't take it. It didn't belong to her anymore. It was a story she didn't want to write in pencil. The next morning, before the city fully woke, she and Zuri slipped away. Zuri didn't ask questions. She rarely did when her mother moved with that quiet urgency. But as the bus pulled away, she turned in her seat and watched the city grow small behind the fogged-up glass. Back in New York, Jackson Whitmore walked out of a boardroom and into silence. He checked his phone between calls. Nothing. No texts, no missed calls, no pictures from Zuri showing her latest drawing, no Nia voice memo of the girls giggling at Saturday practice. It was the first time in 2 weeks she hadn't sensed something. His gut told him something was off. By the time he returned to Cleveland 2 days later, the apartment was empty. No laughter, no drawing, no warmth, just stillness. And on the table, the note and the drawing. Jackson stared at it for a long time. He picked it up with hands that trembled more than he cared to admit, then sat down, drawing pressed to his chest, and closed his eyes. There were no cameras, no press releases, just one man, alone in a quiet room, finally understanding what it meant to lose something money could never replace. Jackson remained seated for a long time. The drawing rested on the table in front of him now, unfolded fully. 3 simple figures drawn in crayon, his tall frame with brown hair. Nia in a pink dress, and Zuri smiling wide in her wheelchair. The red heart hovered above them like a dream made of wax and hope. He traced it with his thumb. The apartment around him was stripped bare, no blankets folded on the couch, no cup drying beside the sink. The radiator no longer hummed, and the scent of Nia's lavender soap was gone, replaced by the stale coldness of abandoned space. Jackson stood slowly, the weight of the note still in his back pocket. He unfolded it once more. "You gave my daughter joy I'll never forget." And for a moment, I remembered who I used to be. That's more than I ever hoped for. Wishing you peace, Nia. It was graceful, kind, dignified, but it felt like a door closing, softly, finally. He stepped into the hallway, the soles of his shoes echoing down the narrow corridor. A few tenants peeked through their doors, recognizing him for the first time. He gave a tight nod but said nothing. Outside, the sky was flat and colorless, mirroring the way his chest felt like he was breathing through fog. He slid into the back of a car, closed the door, and sat in silence while the driver waited for instructions. Jackson didn't speak. He couldn't. It wasn't just disappointment. It was the hollow space between what might have been and what was. The realization that while he had taken his time measured, careful, patient life had not. She was gone, and worse, she had left thinking she didn't belong. Back in New York, the next morning, Jackson stepped into a boardroom filled with pressure and power. The table stretched like a runway, lined with suits, voices polished and loud. A large deal was on the agenda, a redevelopment opportunity in Miami that promised returns in the hundreds of millions. Jackson sat at the head of the table, unmoved. A consultant clicked through slides. A partner leaned forward, already sensing agreement. And then Jackson closed the folder in front of him. "I'm not taking it." The room fell into a stunned silence. "What?" someone asked, half laughing. "I'm redirecting all remaining capital into the North Haven project," Jackson said, voice calm but unshakable. "All of it." "Are you insane?" a senior partner barked. "You're risking everything for what? Sentiment?" Jackson stood. "No, I'm risking everything for something I can live with." He didn't wait for the rebuttals. He walked out, phone in hand. He called his assistant. "Theo, I need you to reroute development funds. Prioritize North Haven. I don't want it stripped and flipped, I want it revitalized, restored. Affordable housing, community spaces, and real jobs." Theo hesitated. "That's going to take serious restructuring." "Then restructure it." He hung up. But none of the money, none of the policy, none of the redirected power mattered as much as the next thing: finding Nia. Over the next few weeks, Jackson searched quietly. No press, no investigators. He reached out to local nonprofits, women's shelters, youth outreach programs. He spoke to rec centers, community coordinators, anyone who might have seen a young mother teaching dance or asking about after-school space. Most didn't recognize the name, but some remembered the face. "There's a group of girls rehearsing at a church hall on the west side," a social worker finally said. "No official classes, but there's this lady with a calm voice and ballet shoes hanging from her tote bag. Could be her." It was a Tuesday morning when Jackson arrived at the hall. It was modest. The kind of place where potlucks happened and candles burned during Christmas services. The air smelled like floor polish and paper programs. He paused outside a wide window. Inside, a handful of little girls moved awkwardly, but enthusiastically through a series of ballet steps. Some wore mismatched socks. One twirled too far and fell, then laughed. At the far end of the room, Nia knelt beside a girl, adjusting her foot position with gentle patience. Her hair was tied in a soft bun. Strands escaped around her face. She wore jeans and a gray long-sleeved tee. No makeup, no jewelry. But Jackson saw it instantly. She looked different. Not glamorized, not dressed up, just alive. He stepped through the doors, quietly. The music stopped. The girls went still, sensing something had shifted. Nia turned. Their eyes met. Shock, pain, recognition, silence. Jackson didn't approach her. He walked instead to the corner, where Zuri sat on a folded blanket, nibbling on a half-eaten cookie, watching everything. He knelt, placed his hand gently over his heart, and said, "Do I have your permission now to help your mom?" Zuri's eyes widened. Then sunshine. She clapped, laughed, nodded with such force her ponytails bounced. "Yes, yes, yes, yes." Behind them, Nia covered her mouth with her hand. She couldn't breathe, not from sadness, not from joy, but from the sheer, overwhelming truth of the moment. Jackson didn't move to hold her. He just looked at her, open and waiting. "I didn't need permission," he said quietly, "but I wanted it." Her laugh came out broken, wet with tears. She crossed the room slowly and stepped into the space he had left for her. The community hall echoed with children's laughter and the soft scuff of tiny shoes on waxed wood. After Zuri's joyful outburst and Nia's trembling steps toward him, Jackson didn't reach for her. He didn't kiss her. He didn't speak in promises. He simply stood there, open, present, real. Nia stopped just a foot away, eyes rimmed with emotion. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, but the words caught somewhere between her chest and throat. Jackson didn't rush her. He'd learned enough to know that patience was its own kind of love. So they stood there, time suspended, the sounds of dancing children softening into the background. Zuri sat beaming nearby, cradling her half-eaten cookie like it was a crown, eyes bouncing between them with quiet excitement. Finally, Nia broke the silence. "You found us." Jackson's voice was steady. "I never stopped looking." Nia's eyes shimmered. "I didn't think you would." "I almost didn't," he admitted. "Not because I didn't care, but because I thought maybe I'd ruined it. Maybe I'd stayed silent too long." Her breath caught. "Ivy came by," she said. "I know," Jackson replied softly. "She said you had someone, that I was—" "She doesn't speak for me," he said firmly, stepping half a foot closer. "I didn't send her. I didn't even know she went." Nia looked down at the floor between them. "I believed her," she whispered, "and I hated that I did." Jackson reached into his coat and pulled something out folded carefully in a plastic sleeve. "The drawing." Her breath hitched. "I didn't keep this because it was cute," he said. "I kept it because it reminded me what mattered when everything else started pulling me away. It reminded me that home isn't something you build with money. It's something someone draws you into." He paused, watching her face. "Zuri saw something in me before I saw it in myself." Nia nodded slowly, a tear sliding down her cheek. She didn't wipe it. One of the girls from the class called across the room. "Miss Nia, show us the move again." Nia turned, gave a small wave. "1 second, baby." Jackson smiled faintly at the easy way she spoke to them. "You built something here." "Not much," she said. "It's more than you think," he said. "And I want to help. But not just with floors or mirrors. I want to be around. With you. With Zuri. If you'll let me." Nia looked at him, full in the face now. "I can't promise much," she said. "I'm not asking for promises. I'm still scared. I'll wait." She searched his eyes, then reached out, not a hug, not a leap, but just a simple gesture, her hand on his forearm. "I can start with letting you walk us home," she said. He exhaled, the tension he didn't know he carried slipping off his shoulders. "That's more than enough." They walked together down the hall after class, Zuri rolling beside them, her small hand clasped in Jackson's, cheeks glowing pink from excitement. Their steps didn't need to match. The rhythm would come in time. Later that evening, in a small, borrowed apartment 2 blocks from the church, they shared dinner-boxed mac and cheese, carrot sticks, and apple slices. Simple, warm, familiar. Jackson sat cross-legged on the floor while Zuri arranged her crayons beside him, carefully explaining the importance of each color. "This one," she said, holding up a peach crayon, "is for skin, but not mine. Mine is more like this." She held up a warm brown. Jackson smiled. "You're right. That's beautiful." "Oh," Nia watched from the kitchen, leaning against the doorway. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't picture perfect, but it was quiet, and it was safe. After Zuri fell asleep, curled into her blanket with her crayon box beside her pillow, Nia and Jackson sat on the steps outside the apartment. The rain had returned, gentle and rhythmic on the pavement. Jackson handed her a warm drink he'd picked up from a nearby corner cafe, ginger tea with honey, her favorite. "How did you know?" she asked. "I asked Zuri." Nia chuckled softly, then grew quiet. "I left because I thought I didn't fit into your world," she said. "That no matter how kind you were, the end of the story would still be the same." Jackson turned to her. "What if this isn't the end of the story?" She didn't answer right away. But then, after a long sip of tea, she said, "Then let's not rush the next chapter." They sat in silence, side by side, not touching but close enough to feel each other's breath. And in the hush of that rainy evening, they didn't build anything new. They simply agreed to stay. The next few weeks unfolded slowly, like a photograph developing in water. Not rushed, not cinematic. Just real. Jackson didn't try to move in or take over. He didn't show up with keys to a new apartment or announce grand gestures. Instead, he showed up with things that felt almost ordinary: bags of groceries with post-it notes marked Zuri's snack shelf, a second-hand copy of Goodnight Moon in hardcover, a stack of clean towels because he'd noticed the old ones had holes. He didn't replace anything. He added to it. Each visit came with a story, a joke, a question, never prying, always present. Nia remained cautious, but her edges began to soften. There was still fear, but it curled smaller with each conversation. Zuri, on the other hand, had no hesitation. She dragged Jackson into sidewalk, chalk games, and pillow forts. She gave him nicknames, made him pinky promise that he wouldn't miss Saturday dance classes unless you're really, really sick or you lose your feet. But even then, you should try. He did. Every Saturday, he sat at the edge of the court, hands clasped, watching Nia with the quiet reverence of someone attending a symphony. Her movements weren't perfect, but they were powerful, alive. He knew now that she had learned to dance again, not because of him, but in spite of everything, and that humbled him. One Wednesday afternoon, he found Nia on the porch folding laundry. She looked up, surprised. "I thought you were in New York this week." "I was," he said, handing her a file folder. "I came back early." She looked at the folder warily. "What's this?" He sat beside her. "Just options." Inside were brochures, notes, and printed emails. Information about neurological rehabilitation centers, specialists in pediatric spinal therapy, places that didn't promise miracles but offered long-term, gentle, patient-centered care. Nia flipped through slowly. "You did this?" Jackson nodded. "I'm not asking to make decisions. I just thought maybe you'd want choices." She didn't answer at first. Then, "Everyone else tries to fix things for me. You're the first to ask what I want fixed." He didn't respond with words, just waited. That night, after Zuri went to sleep, Nia pulled the brochures out again. One in particular stood out, the Leicester Center for Pediatric Mobility and Therapy, in Columbus, close enough to be reachable, far enough to feel like a new chapter. She stared at the intake form for a long time. Under family contact, a blank space waited. She reached for a pen and wrote, "Whitmore, Coleman household." The next day, they made the call. Admissions were full, but the center agreed to schedule an evaluation in 2 weeks. They asked for insurance. Jackson didn't blink. He covered what the plan couldn't. "I don't want you to feel indebted," he told Nia afterward. "I don't," she said, "because you didn't offer pity. You offered partnership." Meanwhile, Theo Jackson's assistant called with an update on the North Haven redevelopment project. The funds had been reassigned. Jackson insisted on transparency, public town halls, hiring from within the community, preserving units for long-term residents. "This isn't a PR stunt," he told the press. "This is a model for what business should look like, not just profitable, but personal." His speech made headlines, but that night, he didn't read them. He sat at Nia's kitchen table helping Zuri peel oranges for tomorrow's lunchbox while Nia reheated rice and vegetables. The apartment still smelled like old paint, but it felt like home. Later, as Zuri slept curled up with her sketch pad, Nia joined Jackson on the porch again. She brought 2 mugs chamomile tea with honey, the same every time. They sat in silence. Eventually she asked, "Why me?" He looked at her steady. "Because you were already holding the whole world on your shoulders. I just offered a hand." Nia's eyes softened. She didn't reach for his, but she let her knee touch his under the table. And that, for now, was enough. Saturday morning arrived, dressed in sunlight and warmth, the first true spring day Cleveland had offered in weeks. Tulips peeked from sidewalk planters, and windows opened just wide enough to let in bird song and the scent of fresh earth. Nia stood at the front steps of the community center, adjusting the straps on Zuri's new wheelchair cushion, one of the small comforts Jackson had added quietly, without fanfare. "Your wheels look official now," Jackson teased, as he approached with 2 paper cups of hot cocoa. "Suri Biamed. Mama says I ride like a queen." "You do," Jackson said, handing her a cup. "All you're missing is a throne." "She's already got one," Nia said, gesturing toward the platform he built months ago. "Just no crown." Zuri grinned. "Balloon crown day?" "I came prepared," he said, pulling a folded balloon from his coat pocket with a magician's flair. The 3 laughed together, easy now, familiar. Inside, the girls were already arriving for class. One had a tutu over jeans. Another wore pink slippers 2 sizes too big. There was joy in the chaos, a rhythm that only Nia seemed able to tame. She greeted each student by name, smoothing flyaway hair, adjusting laces, warming up stiff joints. Jackson sat near the mirror, watching it all unfold, not as an outsider, but no longer as someone unsure of his place. When class began, Nia took the center of the platform, hands on her hips. "Today," she announced, "we're learning how to fall." The girls blinked. "Falling is part of dancing," she said, "and of life. If you don't know how to land, you won't have the courage to leap." She dropped to her knees with grace, arms sweeping out, then stood again. "Your turn." The girls hesitated. "Trust the floor," Naya coaxed. "It won't always catch you gently, but it will hold you." "No." One by one, they tried, some stumbling, others too careful but all laughing. Zuri clapped from the sidelines, delight lighting up her whole face. After class, as the children dispersed with parents and siblings, one of the mothers pulled Nia aside. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said. "My daughter hasn't smiled like this in months. Whatever you're doing here, it's working." Nia nodded, humbled. "We're just moving." "No," the woman said. "You're helping them believe." As Nia gathered mats and Jackson collected stray slippers, Zuri wheeled over holding a folded sheet of paper. "What's this?" he asked. "It's a surprise." He opened it slowly. A new drawing. This time, the three figures stood on a stage, curtains drawn back, spotlight overhead. The red heart was still there, but now it was stitched into the background like part of the sky. Nia leaned over his shoulder. "She's been working on that all week." "Nah. I wanted to show that we're not just standing still anymore," Zuri said. "We're doing something." Jackson swallowed hard. "You are." That afternoon, they walked together through Lincoln Park, spring unfolding around them. The trees had bloomed overnight, and laughter floated from the playground nearby. As they passed a busker playing a soft tune on a portable speaker, Jackson paused. The song was familiar, one of the pieces Nia had danced to in her final showcase. Years ago. He looked at her. "Do you hear that?" She nodded. "I thought I forgot how it went." He held out his hand, palm up. She hesitated. "I can't dance here," she said, glancing around. "In the middle of—" "No one's watching," he said. She looked at him, this man who never demanded, never rushed, never tried to fix what wasn't his to heal. And then she stepped into his arms. No choreography, no spotlight, just two people moving together under trees beginning to bloom. Zuri clapped from her chair, her voice rising like spring itself. "You're dancing again, Mama." Naya smiled, leaning into the warmth of Jackson's chest, her voice soft against his shoulder. "No, baby. This time, I'm living." It started with a phone call. Not the dramatic, middle-of-the-night kind, just a quiet ring late Sunday morning, while Nia stirred pancake batter in a chipped ceramic bowl, and Zuri sat at the table drawing with her favorite purple crayon. Jackson picked up his phone, his expression unreadable as he stepped onto the small balcony. Nia could hear only fragments. "Yes, I remember. She's not in the media anymore. I understand. But this is different now." When he came back inside, his face was calm, but his eyes weren't. "Who was it?" she asked, wiping her hands on a towel. "My mother." That single sentence filled the room like thunder. Zuri looked up from her drawing. Jackson took a breath, then continued. "She's coming to Cleveland. Today." Nia's shoulders tensed. She's never tried before. She didn't know how to. And honestly, I didn't let her. He met Nia's gaze. "But she says she's changed. Says she wants to meet Zuri. To meet you." Nia swallowed hard. "And you believe her?" "I believe people grow," Jackson said. "But I also believe in being prepared." By 4 p.m., Nia had straightened the living room 3 times. Zuri wore her Sunday dress, the lavender one with tiny daisies and a headband Jackson had bought from a local boutique. She practiced her posture in the mirror, whispering, "Polite. Smile. Speak clear." Nia had told her nothing specific. Just, "We have a visitor today. Someone important to Jackson." Zuri had nodded. "I'll be on my best behavior. Promise." When the knock came, it was light but intentional. Nia opened the door to find a tall, regal woman in a dark green wool coat, pearls at her throat, eyes sharp and assessing. "Mrs. Whitmore," Nia said quietly. "Please," she replied, stepping inside. "Just Claire." She glanced around the room, the second-hand furniture, the stack of school books on the floor, the drawing pinned to the fridge. "This is cozy," she said, voice unreadable. Jackson cleared his throat gently. "Mom, this is Nia. And this," he turned toward the dining table, "is Zuri." Zuri smiled. Claire's eyes softened almost imperceptibly. "Hello, sweetheart. It's very nice to meet you." Zuri rolled forward a bit. "Would you like some lemonade? Mama makes it with honey." There was a pause. Then Claire gave a nod. "I'd love some." Over the next hour, Nia watched Claire watch them. She didn't ask about Zuri's chair, or where Nia had danced before. She didn't ask about their apartment, or Jackson's financial involvement. She asked Zuri about her drawings, about what music she liked, about how she learned to spin so fast. And Zuri, in her perfect, open way, answered every question. When Jackson stepped out to take a business call, Claire finally turned to Nia, her tone changing. "I wasn't a good mother," she said flatly. Nia blinked, surprised. "I was cold, calculating, always worried about appearances. Jackson learned to edit himself just to survive me." Nia sat quietly. "I saw the articles," Claire continued. "Billionaire befriends poor single mother." I rolled my eyes. I thought, what's he doing now? Looking for a redemption arc? She looked toward the balcony where Jackson stood, but then he stopped returning my calls. I asked around, found out he'd pulled his money from 2 deals to fund housing and therapy programs, voluntarily, quietly. Claire turned back to Nia, and I realized something had changed. Nia took a slow breath. "He's not playing a part." "I know," Claire said, "because you're not a role either. You're the turning point." She glanced toward the drawing on the fridge, a new one, this time showing 4 figures. Jackson, Nia, Zuri, and a 4th, standing off to the side. Claire, drawn smaller, but still included. "She drew that this morning," Nia said softly. "Said she wanted to make sure everyone had a place." Claire's voice faltered. "She gave me a seat before I even asked." Nia smiled. "She does that." When Jackson returned, he found them still sitting there, 2 women from opposite ends of the world, united by the same storm of love, fear, and hope. Claire stood. "I'll be back," she said to Jackson. "You sure?" he asked gently. She nodded. "I'm not done learning." As she stepped out into the cool evening, she glanced back once, just enough to catch a glimpse of Zuri dancing in her chair, arms outstretched, spinning to silent music. That night, after Zuri fell asleep, Jackson and Nia stood in the kitchen. "She liked the lemonade," he said. "She liked Zuri more." He reached for her hand. "She liked you," he said. Nia leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. "I don't need her to," she whispered. "But I think," she added after a beat, "I'm glad she does." The next morning, sunlight broke over Cleveland in a warm haze. Birds chirped from the roof lines, and the streets buzzed with the quiet activity of a city moving towards spring. In the modest apartment above Mr. Rubin's barber shop, Nia stirred quietly as she heard the soft hum of Zuri humming a ballet tune in the living room. There was peace in the air, but also anticipation. Zuri's evaluation at the Lester Center was tomorrow. Nia moved through the apartment as if packing something invisible. Her nerves, her memories, her fears. She folded Zuri's favorite sweater twice, refolded it, and finally just laid it over her lap. Jackson appeared in the doorway with a paper bag in one hand, and that slow smile she was starting to recognize, not the charming billionaire one, but the real one. "Bagels, 3 kinds. Zuri said you like cinnamon raisin." "I do," Nia said, grateful for something as ordinary and comforting as breakfast. They sat at the table while Zuri played with stickers, lining them along the edges of her sketchbook. Between bites, she asked, "Mama, if I get better, does that mean I'll stop dancing with my chair?" Nia hesitated. "What do you mean, baby?" Zuri looked down at her knees. "I don't want to stop. The chair makes me feel like a rocket ship." Jackson leaned forward, his voice warm. "You'll never have to stop being a rocket. This is about choices, not replacements." "No." Zuri nodded solemnly, as if tucking that answer deep into her chest. That afternoon, they drove to the church for a short class session. Nia wanted to keep the girls active before her absence over the weekend. Claire had offered to step in and supervise while Nia and Jackson traveled with Zuri. "Just call it a structured babysitting gig," she'd said dryly on the phone. "I've raised worse than a room full of preteen ballerinas." At the church, the girls were already stretching on the floor when Nia noticed someone waiting at the edge of the room. "Harper." Nia blinked. She hadn't seen the woman since the day she'd stepped down from the nonprofit dance program, just after Zuri's diagnosis. "Miss Nia," Harper called, her smile cautious. Can we talk? Nia glanced at the girls, nodded to Jackson. He gave her a small thumbs up and stayed with the class. They stepped out into the hallway, where the stained glass windows turned the light into kaleidoscopes. I saw the feature on North Haven's redevelopment, Harper began. I didn't realize you were involved. I'm not, Nia said simply. Jackson is. But your program, these girls, it's part of the outreach now, right? Nia nodded. Not officially, but yes, we'll have a permanent space once the building is finished. Harper looked down. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. No. Nia stayed quiet. I should have fought harder when the funding for Zuri's class was pulled, Harper continued. I let bureaucracy make me cowardly. Nia's voice was calm. It wasn't your job to fight harder. It was mine to keep going. You did more than keep going, Harper said. You built something beautiful. Nia softened. We're not done. No, Harper said. You're just getting started. In class. Back inside, Jackson had turned on the speaker and the girls were taking turns leading a basic routine. Zuri was in the center, directing the others with a mixture of authority and giggles. Later, while walking home, Zuri insisted on pushing her own chair, even up the incline near the corner store. Her arms shook with effort, but she refused help. I'm practicing, she said. The therapy people will want to see I'm strong. Jackson crouched beside her. You're already strong. Show them joy. That's your superpower. Zuri blinked. Really? Really? At home, Nia packed Zuri's travel bag with extra care. Tucked in the side pocket was a drawing of a tree with wide roots and 3 people under it herself, Zuri, and Jackson standing under a banner that said, Together is safe. She folded it gently and kissed Zuri's cheek. We leave early. That night, after Zuri was asleep, Nia stepped out to the fire escape where Jackson sat with 2 mugs of tea. She's ready, Nia said. She's more than ready. Nia stared into the skyline. What if I'm not? Jackson took a breath. You've already done the hardest part, Nia. You made her feel whole before anyone told her she needed fixing. She looked at him, eyes glassy. You think so? I know so, he said. Because I've watched her draw her way through pain. And you let her. A beat. Nia rested her head on his shoulder. Tomorrow they would drive to the Lester Center. Tomorrow, doctors and therapists would assess what the future might hold. But tonight they sat in the hush of spring. Together, exactly where the music plays again. The highway stretched long and open as Jackson's car cut through the morning mist. Zuri sat in the back seat, legs wrapped in a small fleece blanket, her sketchpad resting in her lap. She was quiet, not anxious but focused. Every few minutes, she'd glance out the window, then back down, drawing carefully, as though she was capturing the trip one frame at a time. Nia sat beside Jackson in the front, fingers gripping a travel mug of coffee. She hadn't spoken much since they left at sunrise, but her silence wasn't cold. It was reflective, heavy with everything today meant. Jackson glanced at her. You okay? She nodded, not looking at him. Just keeping my thoughts in a straight line. 1. What's the first one? She exhaled. Don't cry when we walk in. He smiled softly. You can cry. Zuri's tough. She doesn't need to see me afraid. She won't. She sees you brave. Nia looked at him then, and there was something in her eyes, gratitude, but also a trembling kind of trust. The kind she hadn't handed to anyone in years. By the time they arrived at the Lester Center, the morning haze had lifted. The building was modest, built in the 1982nd but well kept. Its entrance lined with flower beds and a ramp that curved up to the main doors. Inside, the waiting area was bright and welcoming. Murals of children in motion covered the walls, running, swimming, flying. A receptionist greeted them with a warm smile. Zuri Coleman? Zuri raised her hand like she was in school. That's me. Right this way. The team's ready for you. The room they were led into wasn't cold or sterile. There were yoga balls in the corner, mats rolled up, and a small shelf of books and puzzles. A woman in her late 30s approached with a clipboard. Hi, I'm Dr. Evelyn Meyer. You must be Zuri. Zuri nodded. And this is my mom and Jackson. Nice to meet you all, Dr. Meyer said kindly. Today's not about pressure. We're just going to play a little. See what Zuri's body already knows how to do, and what it might learn. Zuri blinked. Like a test? More like a game, the doctor said. You ready? Zuri looked at Nia, who gave a steady nod. Rocket ship ready, Zuri whispered. For the next hour, Zuri went through various activities, stretching, reaching, turning. A physical therapist joined halfway through, introducing playful tools. Balance pads, soft resistance bands. Even a parachute Zuri got to hold with both hands while laughing. Nia sat frozen at first, but as Zuri giggled and worked and rolled and pulled, her tension eased. Jackson never took his eyes off either of them. He watched Zuri with pride but watched Nia with awe. Her quiet strength, her careful attention, the way her eyes darted to every detail like a mother looking for both danger and hope. By the end of the session, Zuri lay back on a mat, tired but smiling. Dr. Meyer crouched beside her. You did amazing, Zuri. I'm proud of you. Did I pass? She asked. You did more than pass. You showed me how determined you are. They stepped into the hallway for the consultation. Zuri was offered a snack and a coloring book, and Nia and Jackson sat opposite Dr. Meyer in a small office with soft lighting. There's some good news, she began. Zuri's upper body strength is fantastic. She's got strong coordination and excellent balance. That's going to help her in ways she hasn't tapped into yet. Nia leaned in. And the lower body? There's some potential, the doctor said gently. With consistent therapy, we might see increased response, maybe standing with support, maybe more. Walking? Nia asked, voice thin. Possibly, but it's early, and progress won't be overnight. Nia nodded, gripping the arms of her chair. What matters, Dr. Meyer continued, is that Zuri has a stable environment, consistent therapy, and encouragement. You're already giving her the first and the third. We can help with the second. Jackson leaned forward. Whatever she needs, we'll provide it. Nia glanced at him. We? He looked back at her. If you'll let me stay part of her world. Dr. Meyer smiled, not intruding, but clearly sensing the gravity of the moment. We have an opening in our spring program, she added. Intensive therapy twice a week, family coaching included. Nia closed her eyes for a moment, gathering her thoughts, then opened them with clarity. We're in. No. After the session, they stopped at a local diner with checkered floors and red leather booths. Zuri ate 2 pancakes bigger than her plate and talked about parachutes and balloons and how one therapist smelled like peppermints and dreams. Back at the apartment that night, Nia unpacked Zuri's things slowly, laying them out with care. She placed the folder of paperwork on the kitchen counter and stared at it. She didn't feel fear. Not now. Jackson entered, holding a bowl of ice cream for Zuri and a smaller one for her. Therapy Tuesdays, he said. I think it's our new thing. Nia took the bowl, her fingers brushing his. I think we're ready. He looked at her. We are. And outside, through the open window, the city breathed in the quiet hush of twilight still, warm and full of motion waiting to begin. The following weeks moved with rhythm therapy on Tuesdays and Thursdays, dance on Saturdays, and moments of unexpected quiet between them. Jackson grew into the small rituals of Nia and Zuri's life, tying shoelaces, making peanut butter toast just the way Zuri liked it, arriving with fresh flowers from the vendor on Tremont Street who always added a few extra stems for the girl in the chair. Zuri began to glow in a way she hadn't before, not because she was being fixed, but because she was finally being seen from every angle, celebrated in every form. Her joy became a language the three of them shared, spoken with glances and laughter and sleepy hugs before bedtime. One Thursday afternoon, while Nia and Jackson sat in the waiting area at the Lester Center, Zuri's therapy session ran a few minutes long. They didn't mind. They'd come to cherish these quiet pockets of time, safe spaces to think aloud. Jackson leaned back, arms crossed casually. You ever think about opening your own studio? Nia smiled. Every day. Right now it's just a dream. What if it didn't have to be? She turned to him. Jackson, I'm not saying you need me to make it happen. I'm saying maybe I'm here because I want to help build what already wants to be born. She studied him. You really believe in second chances, don't you? I do now. That night, after Zuri had gone to sleep and the evening had cooled into a soft breeze, Nia sat at the kitchen table reviewing therapy notes. She reached for the envelope from Lester Center with progress charts and therapist comments. Inside, However, she found something unexpected, an evaluation form marked duplicate, and at the bottom, a note. Zuri's file flagged for reassessment per guardian request J. Whitmore. Nia blinked. She read it again. Something about it didn't feel right. She hadn't requested reassessment. Jackson hadn't mentioned doing so. She turned the envelope over. There was a postmark dated nearly 2 weeks before their visit. Her stomach tightened. She took a picture of the form with her phone and sent it to Jackson with a simple text. Did you ask for this? A pause. Then, no, I've never seen that form. Another message came quickly after. I'll find out. The next morning, Jackson arrived earlier than usual. He looked tired, jaw tight. I called Theo, he said. He's the only one with access to certain admin accounts. Nia watched him carefully. And the request didn't come from my office. It came from someone pretending to act on my behalf. Nia stiffened. Who? Jackson hesitated. I don't know yet, but I have an idea. Over the next few days, Jackson launched a quiet investigation. He didn't want media attention. No lawyers yet. He contacted the Lester Center's admin director personally, then spoke to Zuri's physical therapist. Someone had called from a number listed under the Whitmore Foundation, asking for Zuri's medical file for insurance purposes. The caller used his name. Jackson was livid but calm, until Theo called 2 nights later. It was Ivy, Theo said over the phone. She still had access to some of the legacy accounts tied to your charity. She made the request. Oh. Jackson stood in his apartment, staring out over the city skyline, jaw clenched. Why, he asked. She told someone at Lester she was trying to verify Zuri's eligibility before any real commitment was made to, quote, expanding the girl's reach. Jackson's voice was ice. She made it sound like Zuri was a PR move. Theo didn't answer. She crossed a line, Jackson said. She went after a child. That night, Jackson didn't call Nia. He needed to come to her with action, not just anger. By morning, he had removed Ivy from all remaining foundation accounts, issued an internal memo revoking access for any former partners, and submitted a report to the Lester Center documenting the breach. Then he walked to Nia's apartment and told her everything. Nia listened without interruption. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. I knew people like her would push back, she said finally. I just didn't expect it so soon, or so personal. Jackson took her hand. I'm sorry. I should have cut those ties sooner. It's not your fault, she said, but it is your responsibility. He nodded. And I'm owning it. Zuri rolled in from the bedroom, still sleepy-eyed, clutching her stuffed lion. Why does everyone look like someone broke the TV? Nia chuckled softly. It's okay, baby. Just adult stuff. Zuri climbed into Jackson's lap. Adults always make things too loud. He wrapped his arms around her. You're right. She tilted her head. Can I still go to therapy tomorrow? Of course, Nia said quickly. No one's stopping anything. Zuri looked satisfied. Good. I have a new move to show them. After she wheeled back toward the living room, Nia turned to Jackson. You handled it, she said quietly. I had to. No, she corrected. You chose to. That night, Jackson made a call to his legal counsel. I don't want retaliation, he said. But I want distance. A line. And I want it in writing. Nah. The past had reached forward with claws, but Jackson had answered with clarity. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't just defending his image. He was protecting a family. 2 days after Jackson filed the legal request, a letter arrived delivered not by courier or assistant, but by Claire Whitmore herself. She stood at the threshold of Nia's apartment, dressed in a navy pantsuit and heels that clicked softly against the hallway tile. Her expression was serious, but not cold. I need a moment, she said, with both of you. Nia hesitated, then stepped back to let her in. Jackson followed her to the kitchen, where the table still held Zuri's breakfast plate and a sketchpad open to a half-finished drawing of a phoenix. Claire placed the letter on the table. It was embossed with the Whitmore Foundation seal. Ivy's out, she said. Permanently. I've spoken to the board. What she did was inexcusable. No. Jackson opened the letter. It was a formal statement of disassociation, signed by every current Foundation member. Ivy was stripped of all advisory roles and future access to foundation projects. "I didn't ask you to do this," Jackson said. "I know," Claire replied, "but you shouldn't have had to." She turned to Nia. "And you shouldn't have had your daughter's safety treated like a business strategy." Nia's lips tightened, but she gave a single nod. "Thank you." Claire sat down across from them. "I grew up in a world where everything was about appearance. The truth only mattered if it leaked. But this family you're building, it's built on something stronger than press releases." She looked at Jackson, her eyes softening. "I see you more clearly now than I ever have." He looked away, emotion rising. After Claire left, Nia picked up the letter again and studied it. "Do you trust her now?" she asked Jackson. He paused. "I trust that she's trying." That afternoon, they took Zuri to the Cleveland Botanical Garden as a reward for her steady therapy progress. She moved through the paths with delight, naming every flower she could. When they reached the butterfly exhibit, she gasped. "They're everywhere." Jackson crouched beside her. "Pick one." "I can't," she whispered. "They're all moving too fast." He looked at her. "Then don't pick. Just sit with them." Zuri rolled into the center of the garden, tilted her head back, and let a dozen butterflies dance above her. Nia leaned against the railing, watching. "I forgot what wonder looked like," she said. Jackson slipped his hand into hers. "She reminds us." Later that week, Theo sent Jackson a new proposal plans for a mixed-use arts and community center on the east side. A place for underserved kids to dance, draw, sing. The foundation would back it. No ivy, no bureaucracy, just action. Jackson forwarded the proposal to Nia with a note. "Want to build something together?" Her reply came hours later. "Let's start with the floor. The rest will rise." One evening, after dinner, Zuri pulled a small envelope from her backpack. "Homework?" Nia asked. "Nope," Zuri said. "This one's special." Inside was a hand-drawn invitation, decorated with glitter and marker. Zuri's first solo dance. Saturday, 3 p.m., Community Center. "You made this?" Jackson asked. "Miss Harper helped me spell the big words." "You're doing a solo?" Nia said, eyes wide. "I want to show everyone what I learned." "You're going to be amazing," Nia whispered, hugging her tightly. Jackson crouched beside them. "Want help with your costume?" Zuri grinned. "You can be my sparkle manager." On Saturday, the folding chairs filled fast. Families from the neighborhood, students from class, even Dr. Meyer and Claire came. Jackson sat in the front row, hands clenched in his lap. Then the music began. Zuri wheeled onto the floor slowly, arms lifting in time with the melody. Her movements were deliberate, graceful. At one moment, she pulled herself up just enough to balance on her knees an echo of a standing pirouette, her arms forming the shape of a bird in flight. The room was silent. Then came the final pose, arms lifted, eyes shining. Applause erupted. Jackson wiped a tear. Nia didn't try to hide hers. Zuri beamed, soaking in the love. After the performance, a woman approached Nia quietly. "I lost my son last year," she said. "He had cerebral palsy. Watching your daughter tonight, it healed something I didn't know was broken." Nia placed a hand over her heart. "Thank you for telling me." Later, in the quiet after the crowd had gone, Nia found Jackson standing alone in the darkened hall, staring at the empty stage. "Penny for your thoughts," she said softly. "I used to think legacy was about what you leave behind," he said. "Now I think it's about who stands beside you while you're still here." Nia stepped forward. "Then I guess we're building a legacy together." He took her hand, and this time, it wasn't hesitant. It was certain. Outside, the city lights flickered on, one by one. A skyline built on steel and history. And somewhere in the middle of it, a girl in a wheelchair had just danced her way into forever. The following Monday brought gray skies and drizzle, but inside the community center, the atmosphere buzzed with warmth. The performance had sparked something bigger than applause. It ignited movement. Parents were calling in asking about enrollment. Local businesses had offered to donate materials. And Harper had already met with Jackson and Nia twice to sketch out early drafts for the new arts center. But amid all the growth, something more personal was quietly blooming. After a morning therapy session, Zuri wheeled up beside Jackson as he waited near the entrance. She looked up, a bit more serious than usual. Can I ask you something? Anything, he said. Zuri twisted the strings on her hoodie. Are you going to marry my mom? Jackson blinked. Zuri tilted her head. I don't mean like tomorrow. I like the way you make her laugh, and she only makes that sound when she feels safe. Jackson knelt beside her, smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. I love your mom very much. Zuri gave a sage nod. Okay, but if you do marry her, can I wear glitter boots? Non negociable. Later that day, Jackson and Nia sat in the back booth of a small cafe they discovered by accident, one of those places that smelled like cinnamon and old jazz records. Nia stirred her tea while Jackson scrolled through architectural sketches on his tablet. They're beautiful, she said, tracing a curved ceiling with her finger, but maybe too polished. He nodded. You want something raw? I want the floor to creak, she said. I want the kids to feel like they can fall down and get back up without breaking the space. He leaned back. You're not just building a studio, you're building sanctuary. Her eyes softened. And I want it in the old firehouse. Jackson raised a brow. On 54th? That place has been boarded up for a decade. Exactly, Nia said. It's waiting for something new. I'll make some calls. She reached across the table, placing her hand over his. No rush. The work is already happening. We're just giving it a roof. That evening, after they tucked Zuri in with her sketchpad and nightly playlist of lullabies, Nia and Jackson stood on the fire escape watching the city exhale under the setting Sunday. Do you ever miss that other world? She asked. The gala world? The glass and marble world? She nodded. I don't, he said. I thought I would, but then I met the two of you. She looked at him, amused. We ruined you. He smiled. You rebuilt me. Below, a car drove past with music playing from the window, an old Stevie Wonder track that echoed up the brick alley. Nia leaned her head on Jackson's shoulder. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't met? I try not to, he said, because we did. Oh. Later that week, they held their first informal town circle at the church, an open forum where families could share what they needed from the future community space. It was simple. Chairs in a circle. No microphones, just voices. One mother spoke about wanting a safe place for her son to paint. A retired veteran offered to teach woodworking. A high school student asked, shyly, if they could build a sound booth for recording music. When the circle closed, Harper looked at Nia with tears in her eyes. This is bigger than we thought. It always was, Nia said. That night, while sorting through feedback forms and scribbled ideas, Jackson found a napkin folded between pages. Zuri had drawn on it. It was the firehouse red bricks, 2 wide windows, and above it, in bubble letters, the after place. He showed it to Nia. She says it's called that because it's what comes after you feel broken, she said softly. It's where people land. Jackson traced the name with his thumb. That's it, he whispered. That's what we build. And in that moment, under the flicker of old lamps and the scent of paper and ink, they knew. The foundation had already been poured. Now all they had to do was raise the walls. The air was brisk but full of promise the day they stepped into the firehouse for the first time. Jackson had secured temporary access from the city council, with an official proposal underway to lease the building through the foundation's community redevelopment initiative. But for now, it was theirs to dream into. The building groaned as the old doors creaked open. Dust floated through the air like forgotten stories. Sunlight filtered in through high windows, casting streaks of light across the stained concrete floors. Zuri rolled in slowly, wide-eyed. It smells like old smoke and pizza. Nia laughed. That sounds about right. They spent hours inside taping off walls, measuring spaces, taking photos of peeling paint and exposed brick. Jackson brought in Theo and an architect friend named Lena, who walked through the space with a sketchpad and a curious smile. This place has bones, Lena said, running a hand along a rusted railing. Good bones. Strong enough to carry what we want to build? Jackson asked. She nodded. Stronger than new. Zuri set up camp in a sunny corner and started a new drawing. This one had wide mirrors, ballet bars, and a stage that curved like a wave. I want the floor to feel soft but strong, she explained. Like it says, you can try again. The following week was a blur of meetings, phone calls, and site visits. Claire helped broker the city lease. Harper began recruiting volunteers, and word spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Nia couldn't go to the grocery store without someone stopping her to ask how they could help. They decided to name it officially, the After Place, just as Zuri had drawn it. The name stuck like truth. On Saturday morning, they held a cleanup kickoff. Dozens of volunteers arrived, some old friends, many strangers. A grandfather who used to be a plumber showed up with his toolbox. 2 teen girls brought buckets and paint rollers. Someone donated a dozen folding chairs. A woman from the bakery down the block arrived with trays of muffins and thermoses of hot coffee. Zuri sat at the entrance with a clipboard, checking people in. Her cheeks were flushed with pride. By noon, the building no longer felt abandoned. It pulsed with purpose. At one point, Nia stepped back to catch her breath and spotted Jackson high on a ladder, replacing a broken window pane. "You okay up there?" she called out. "I'm fine," he yelled back. "Just wondering if I should have taken that engineering class my mom pushed on me in college. She'd be proud." "She's terrified," he grinned, "but supportive." That evening, after everyone had gone home, Nia, Jackson, and Zuri stood in the center of the old engine bay, now stripped clean and echoing with silence. "I think this is the first time in my life I've claimed something," Nia said softly. "Like really said, this is mine." Jackson looked at her. "It's yours. It's ours." "No." Zuri looked up from her chair. "It's everyone's." In the days that followed, the transformation quickened. They painted the walls, patched the roof, and installed new flooring. They hung old photographs from the neighborhood alongside Zuri's drawings. The stage came next, built by hand, low to the ground, safe and wide. Claire showed up unannounced one afternoon, carrying a framed photo of Jackson as a toddler in a bow tie. "He was always trying to climb onto tables," she said. "I thought this might be a better use of his energy." Nia laughed, accepting the photo. "We'll give it a proper place." The first official class was set for Saturday. They called it Open Steps, an invitation for anyone, of any age, to take a movement class with no pressure, no mirrors, just rhythm and light. The night before, Nia couldn't sleep. She stood in the center of the empty studio, barefoot, moving slowly in the hush. She danced not to remember, not to mourn, but to mark the moment. Behind her, soft footsteps approached. Jackson stood at the doorway, watching. "I didn't mean to interrupt." "You didn't," she whispered. "This is for you too." He stepped into the space, uncertain. "I haven't danced since prep school," he said. "Then tonight's your comeback," she smiled, holding out a hand. Together, they moved not perfectly, not even gracefully, but truthfully, with breath and heart and all the miles they'd traveled just to arrive at this quiet room, where everything began again. After the last note faded from Nia's speaker, Jackson held her hand longer than necessary. "You've changed me," he said quietly. "No," she replied. "You just remembered who you are." Outside, the street lamps flickered on. Inside, hope hung from the rafters like light itself. Tomorrow, they would open the doors. But tonight, they danced. The morning was clear, the kind of morning that felt like a promise. By 9 a.m., the sidewalk outside the After Place buzzed with energy. Paper lanterns swayed from the awning. Chalk drawings colored the front steps. Stars, hearts, stick figures in motion. Someone had set up folding chairs under a banner that read, "Open Steps, where movement meets belonging." Nia stood just inside the main entrance, her palms flat against her thighs, grounding herself. She wore simple black leggings and a soft gray wrap top. Not a costume, not armor, just her. Zuri zipped across the studio in her chair, weaving through balloons and streamers like a jet on a mission. "Mama, do you think people will come?" "They're already here," Nia said, smiling as she pointed through the window. Outside, a line had formed: children with backpacks, older women in headscarves, high schoolers with headphones, a man in a wheelchair grinning ear to ear. Jackson appeared beside her in a pressed blue shirt, sleeves rolled, a look of deep stillness in his eyes. He kissed her cheek, just lightly. "I ordered too many muffins." "Good," she said. "We'll need them." Claire arrived 10 minutes later, a clipboard in hand. The fire marshal already cleared the room. Harper's directing foot traffic, and I told Theo no speeches over 3 minutes. Nia raised a brow. "You're enjoying this." Claire gave a thin smile. I'm surprisingly useful when I'm not meddling. At precisely 10 a.m., Nia stepped onto the stage. No microphone. Just her voice and a room of waiting hearts. "Welcome to the afterplace," she said. The crowd hushed. "We call it that because we all arrive somewhere after. After grief, after change, after silence. This is the space where we move again. Where we remember joy, and where everyone has a place." May. Applause filled the room, not loud but deep, as though every person clapped with something inside themselves. The first session began with simple stretches. Nia stood at the front, Jackson beside her, awkward but willing. Zuri led a small group in chair-based motion, spinning in gentle circles, guiding others with hand cues. Laughter filled the room. By noon, the floorboards echoed with footsteps, wheels, giggles, and music. Parents moved alongside children. A retired dancer from the Bronx taught a few pirouettes. Someone brought out congas, and rhythms layered over rhythms like heartbeat upon heartbeat. In a far corner, Claire sat beside a young girl sketching. She listened more than she spoke. Harper handed out flyers for the weekly schedule. Monday night choir. Tuesday movement therapy. Wednesday, open mic. Saturday, always, was dance. That afternoon, Zuri took the stage for a surprise performance. Nia had no idea what was coming. Jackson stood beside her as Zuri rolled into the spotlight, arms lifted like wings. She danced to silence, no music, just breath and imagination. Every movement told a story. Of falling. Of flying. Of someone who had once said, "Don't help me. Help my mom." When she finished, the room rose to its feet. Tears filled Nia's eyes, not from sorrow, but from wholeness. After the final applause faded, Jackson turned to her. "There's something I've been meaning to ask." Nia looked at him, suddenly breathless. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. But it wasn't the moment for kneeling or speeches. "Not for someday," he said. "For now, for this life, for every dance." Nia opened the box. Inside was a ring, simple, gold, with a single stone that shimmered like moonlight. "Yes," she whispered. Zuri wheeled over, eyes wide. "Are we getting married now?" "Not today," Jackson grinned. "But soon." "Dotable. Can I wear glitter boots?" Nia laughed. "I wouldn't have it any other way." That evening, when the last guest had gone and the lights dimmed low, Nia walked the empty studio once more. She touched the mirrors, the bars, the floors they'd scrubbed and sanded and blessed with effort. She remembered every chapter, pain and doubt and joy braided together. And then, in the quiet, she danced. Jackson watched from the doorway. Zuri slept in his arms, her head resting against his chest, her fingers still curled as though reaching for rhythm in dreams. Outside, the city pulsed with life. Inside, love stood still just long enough to be seen. And in that moment, the after became always. The story teaches us that healing begins where love is honest and unwavering. It reminds us that strength isn't measured by perfection or power, but by the quiet, daily choice to show up for yourself and for those you love. Through Zuri's courage, Nia's resilience, and Jackson's transformation, we learn that true community isn't built by grand gestures, but by small acts of care, trust, and listening. In a world often marked by division, the afterplace becomes a symbol that from brokenness, something beautiful can rise when we choose to stand together.